Welcome back, folks. Me and Jacob Infante are back to talk to you guys about the interior D line. My name is Quentin Crisco. Find me on Twitter at BuckHisStats. You can find Jacob on Twitter at JacobInfante24. We're going to talk about interior defenders in the NFL draft here. We've already given you guys 10 of these interior defenders. So if you didn't catch that, make sure to go back and listen. But we're going to give you guys, 8 more here today that we're looking at, think might fit on the Bears. So we'll just go ahead and jump in. First up here, we have Dante Stills out of West Virginia. So Dante, he played some 4-tech, some 4-eye, some 3-tech, some 5-tech, and some 6-tech. So he's a bit of a tweener, I think, like 280 pounds is what he weighed in at.
Yeah.
And I really liked his hand fighting more than anything on his film. His hand fighting and his some of his lateral quickness and explosiveness off the ball was really impressive to me. And you could see it in his combine. He was a tweener in his combine, 286, 4.85, 40-yard dash. So you're going to deal with him that question of, like, can he play defensive end? Can he play 3-tech? Like, it kind of goes in and out. I think he's probably a 3-tech if you're going to put him anywhere. Like, if you're not going to use him in a versatile way, he's a 3-tech in my mind, just because he was really good at shooting those gaps, getting into them, using his hands to get free through the gap and to just create chaos in the backfield. What did you see, Jacob?
I agree with a lot of that. I have him as a 3-tech also. He's someone that probably you're looking at like 5th, 6th round, probably, just because, he is undersized, sub 290 for a defensive tackle, but also very athletic. And, he's the brother of Darius Stills, who got signed by the Raiders as an undrafted free agent a while back. The explosiveness stands out, flexibility, the ability to wiggle himself through gaps and, create some backfield penetration is definitely impressive. Because he's a lighter interior defensive lineman, there can be some issues with, holding his gaps and, eating up those holes in the run game. And I do think he can work on his hand usage a little bit more still, but I think from a pure disruptive perspective, from what he brings from an athleticism perspective, there's definitely a lot to like there. So I think he'll get drafted. It's just a matter of how early do you want to draft someone who's, an undersized defensive lineman. And it's not like his film's not as good as like a Kalijah Cansey. He's not as polished of a defensive tackle, but it's still the same. He's smaller, but he's quick. And it's just a matter of how you value that, in my opinion. But I think he's going to get drafted. It'll just be on day 3.
Yeah, I think he's plays a lot of special teams too. Yeah. So I think that's his lock to get drafted. That and his dad played in the league. His dad, Gary Stills, played linebacker in the NFL. So yeah. I think that usually helps guys. Next up here, we're going to Matt Eberflus's alma mater, University of Toledo, to talk about Desjuan Johnson. He played some 5-tech, some 3-tech, some 2-tech, some 1-tech, and even some 7-tech there. He is a really interesting prospect, I thought. He just playing all over the line, had a bunch of athletic traits that I really liked on film. Pretty raw, pretty upright player, but when everything was working together, I thought he put together some really impressive reps. I think that he needs a lot of coaching still to get to where he needs to go, because right now he really just looked like a bull rush athlete, and that was his arsenal. I'm more athletic than you, and I can bull rush. That's a lot of guys' arsenal at this level, yeah. But a lot of guys don't have the athletic traits that he does to dominate, especially not in the MAC. So that's always kind of tough with this to weigh, like, man, he's going up against MAC opponents. But when I watched a game against Ohio State, he was still very disruptive. What do you think, Jacob?
No, I agree. And with Desjuan Johnson, you're looking at another guy who's an undersized defensive lineman, but I think you see quite a bit of talent, especially from a 3-tech alignment. The explosiveness, off the ball, I think is very good. He finished with a total of, he had in his final 2 years, he had 10 sacks and 29 tackles for a loss, which not just to be a stat sheet scout or whatever, but it does help when you've seen, okay, this guy can produce at the collegiate level. Once he gets out into space, I think that's where he really shines compared to other defensive linemen in this class. He's a high motor guy. He's got very good agility, and I think that helps him out on stunts a lot. I think he's one of the type of guys that you can have him bounce outside to the offensive tackle, and he'll still be a threat to generate pressure there. I think he gets pushed around a bit in the run game. He's someone I'm a little bit lower on than Stills, just because he's even smaller, and he's a group of 5 prospect as opposed to a power 5 prospect. But he's someone I think like round 6, round 7, I think he should get drafted. Certainly. I think, he's got the athleticism and the want to succeed at the next level. It's just going to be a matter of, can he overcome the lack of significant bulk and, so size, which I think he can to be a solid rotational defender, but I don't think the ceiling is high enough to the point where I'd take him much higher than day 3.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think he's such a developmental guy where you're just straight up betting on traits. Like, I mean, I know sometimes people say that about first round guys, but like late round guys, you can really see like you are just betting on traits sometimes. And I think he's one of those guys. Ultimately, whether he gets drafted or not, I think comes down to the interview process. I mean, he's got to convince someone that he's worth taking that bet on. Next up here, we have some of the most fun film I've watched this year is Moro Ojomo out of Texas. And this is a guy who he's just chaos sometimes. Like, I love watching him. He's explosive. He's fast. He's a little undersized at 292 pounds. He's got long arms, 34.5-inch arms. And he uses them. Like, he gets right into the defender. He rips, he pulls, he throws his arms around violently. Like, he is chaos in the middle of the line of scrimmage, which is just fun to watch. He does get blown up in the run sometimes. He's not going to hold up against double teams at 290 pounds. He's strong. Put up 29 bench reps with 34.5-inch arms. That tells me something. But his lower body, I think, probably needs a little more mass to hold up against the run like that. But I think he's going to get there. Like, I mean, we're almost talking about a Kobie Turner here. This guy went to college at 16 years old. He's been at UT for 5 years. He's 21 now, and he's about to go to the NFL. So he's not like Okoye came out at 19 years old. It was, that was even like more ridiculous than Ojomo here.
Yeah, where it's like, oh, here's this 12-year-old entering the league. This is absurd.
Yeah.
Like, Kobie Turner is probably still like 25 or something.
Dude, I thought I was young and stupid, and I thought, how could you pass an Kobie Turner? He's like 18.
Yeah. No, but I mean, I think that's an interesting comp for him. For Ojomo, his frame is just so interesting to me because he's shorter. He's about like 6'2.5", round up to 6'3", 292, which isn't small, but he started off the year, he was listed at 281. So he's done a good job of adding some weight to his frame, and he's got really long arms, and the quickness off the ball is impressive. I think you can line him as far inside as a 1-tech or, maybe a true nose. You can have him as a true defensive end, as a 5-tech with his hand in the dirt, 3-tech, 2-eye, exactly as a 2-tech, wherever you want to put him. I just think he's a guy who plays hard. He's, quick in a vacuum. I agree. He's going to have to add some more power in his lower half. I think his anchor's a bit thin at this point. So he's someone like round 5, I think is fair for him. Just because I don't think he's got insane upside, and I don't know how much more weight he can handle on his frame without it sacrificing his speed and conditioning. Just from a height perspective, but there's stuff to work with here, and I think that his tape's, like you said, a lot of fun. And Speaking of a guy whose tape is a lot of fun, I want to bring up a Florida guy here. Let's talk about Gervon Dexter. And again, I should know this. It's always the pronunciations that mess with me. I don't know.
It's Gervon.
Gervon, okay.
I've got the phonetic spelling in our draft guide here. It's
Oh,
Gervon. I found it on
okay.
Florida's website.
Yeah.
His nickname is the Gorilla.
Ooh, all right. And that's a pretty badass nickname if I do say so myself. But yeah, Gervon, now that I finally know how to pronounce his name this late into the process, tall guy. You're looking at 6'6", 310. Not super long arms, but they're long enough that, especially against offensive guards and centers and stuff like that, I don't think it's going to be that much of an issue. He's an explosive guy. He's a very good athlete. And even if his 10-yard split wasn't elite at the combine, I see someone who, accelerates well off the line of scrimmage. I think that, at least in my opinion, I think his best value comes as a one tech on passing downs. And he can play 3 tech and he can be effective there, but I kind of like him even farther inside. I think he's got that initial burst and the ability to penetrate the A gap and, solid agility for a guy his size. And again, another high motor player. I know I feel like I've said that 1,000 times, but it's another guy. He just plays hard, and I think he can do a better job of using his hands, but I see someone that like mid to late, like round 3, I think is fair for him. If he falls into day 3 at all, I think that's a steal. But I think the mid to late 3rd, I think that's probably good value for him. So what do you think?
I love him. I think he is the ideal 4-3 nose tackle. When I watched his tape, that was what I saw. The ideal 4-3 nose tackle who can, he could get away with being a 3-tech if you have to shift the line. But also, he can hold up to double teams. He has so much power. He is so dang strong. And he's tall. He plays tall.
Yeah.
His arms are a little short. Guys are going to get into his chest some. In college, it didn't matter. I watched this tape and I was sitting there going man, I could knock him for all this, but it doesn't matter right now. Will it matter in the NFL? That's the big question, because he's gonna play tall. When you're 6'6", it's gonna be hard to get to get any natural leverage. Yeah. And because of his short arms, he's gonna get stood up more. But if he can keep holding the ground the way he did in college, it would just anchoring down and saying you might have me upright, but you ain't moving me. I love him. At that point, he's just a massive rock who you can't move. And it's not like he's your prototypical nose tackle, but I think he's going to be really effective in a 4-man front, playing that type of 1-tech role, like you said, especially on passing downs. On some double teams, he might get washed a little, but I still trust him in running downs as long as you have some other guys who are solid against the run around him. I think he's still going to be pretty dang good. Still has to develop, he needs to get with the right coaching staff who's gonna teach him, force him to do the right things to get better, to work his hands more, to get that knee bend, even if he's still tall, to get off the ball quickly. I think part of it was he played a ton of snaps at Florida last year, and even going before that, I think he was probably gassed at times.
Yeah.
But he did not get off the ball well. And when you're as explosive as he is, you should be getting off the ball well. You should be maxing that out. So really, the best way I can sum it up at the end of the day is I thought he was the motor that made Florida's defense go. Yeah. And I think he has Chicago Bear written all over him.
I certainly wouldn't complain, honestly. I think there's a lot to like with him. What round are you thinking on him? Because I've got him round 3, but I'm a little curious where you have him ended up.
I've got him mid-2nd now, I believe.
Okay.
And I don't think that's where he's going to go. Because I think he's a nose tackle. I think he's a four down, an even front nose tackle, which is just not valued the same way as other defensive tackles are. Like in the system that we got here, his position value is the same as a 3-tech, which just isn't right. I think probably late second is where I would ultimately say I think he belongs. But right now the grade is mid-second.
Okay. I can get behind that. I think if he goes round 2, I certainly wouldn't hate that at all. I think that's pretty fair value for him. There's someone I want to talk about again here, and that's it seems like Ohio State has done a really good job of just defensive linemen in general, whether that's edge rushers or interior defensive linemen. Every year they're producing at least someone. This year, one of their guys is Taron Vincent out of, being a D tackle out of Ohio State, and not the biggest guy out there. He got listed. I have him down as 6'2", 295. I have to go back and double check to see if he measured officially because he didn't measure. He wasn't at the combine. He's another one of those guys. He's a bit smaller, but he's quick off the ball. I like him best as a 3-tech. I think his burst gives him a little bit of an advantage when he's lined up just a tad bit outside. Like, I don't like him directly over the center, but I think that because of a lack of top-notch length, it can be a little bit difficult for him in like a 5-tech kind of role. But not only does he have good burst off the ball, but I also think he's got some good raw power. I think he, packs a solid punch at the point of attack, and he's shown some flashes of good just jab placement. And it's just a matter of, okay, this isn't the lengthiest guy out there. His pad level is not tremendous, and I think that can hurt, especially being a bit of a smaller defensive tackle. When you don't have your weight underneath you, when you don't have proper weight distribution, that can affect how much power you generate. So I think Vincent's a bit of a later day 3 guy for me. I'm saying like round 6, round 7, probably. I think he's someone, he definitely deserves a shot at the next level. And I think he's someone that I think he'll make a roster, coming right out of school. But I just think that he's a little bit of a work in progress. But that's not the worst thing in the world, especially when you're a quicker defensive lineman, someone who can rush the passer as a 3-tech.
Yeah, I think ultimately his measurements are going to matter a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, I see a guy who he uses his hands well to disengage. He has some really nice core strength. This guy's contact balance, there were times where I was laughing at the screen, like, how is he still standing and leaving those 3 guys on the ground? Like, he didn't make the play, but it was just like, how is he still standing?
Yeah.
So I think there's value in that when you're looking at a 3-tech who can, just make some other guys look silly while they're trying to block them and can end up being the last guy standing to make a tackle. So that core strength is really what stood out to me. I thought he had some good flexibility, some good bend that he played with, and he kept good knee bend throughout a lot of his reps too, which along with his natural leverage, I thought really benefited him. He just had some really good lift into blockers, but I'm not sure if he can stop the run. I'm not sure if he can hold up against the run, and whether his arm length is enough, whether his weight is enough, and if he does bench press, I mean, I might factor that in a little just to see, whether his disengagement skills will keep going at the NFL level, or if it's going to be something he's just going to be chopping at wood and not getting anywhere. But so I liked his tape. I'm skeptical about what his NFL production is going to look like, though, until I see the measurements. So, I mean, his tape, I thought, looks like a 4th-round pick, but his measurements could kick him down to a 6th or 7th if they're not where they need to be.
Yeah. I think that's
Next up here, I got out of Wake Forest, Kobie Turner, Agent Zero. Or number 0 at Wake. 3-tech, 2-tech, 4-tech, 6-tech. Another guy who just played all over the defensive line and quick. He's quick. He's got some decent bend to him for an interior guy. And I thought he played with a great motor. And another guy who I really liked his core strength, where it was like, how is he still standing sometimes?
Yeah.
But there were some things that, like, his stance just really stood out to me. It was just very inefficient. Like it felt like all his weight was on the balls of his feet, not enough on the front on his hands, and it impacted his get off. He did it, like, you see his explosiveness at times in tape, but it's never off the snap that I really noticed it.
Yeah.
So I think getting with the NFL coaching staff could help him iron that out, really max out his physical abilities and help him there. I don't think he's a guy who's ever going to be able to two gap, a little undersized for that. And he was a part-time player at Wake. He only really played, I think it was passing downs. Like I know I watched plenty of plays where he was going against the run,
Yeah.
but it seemed like he was coming in for third downs in red zone. That seemed to be kind of the trend that I noticed, at least. But what did you see, Jacob?
Yeah, so it's been a little bit since I've watched Kobie Turner because I have in my notes, I clearly forgot to update it. It says through the first 6 games of the 2022 season, he's the highest graded interior defensive lineman in the Power 5 at PFF. And that's through the first 6 games. I don't know what happened in the last second half. So it's been a little bit since I've watched him, but I do remember when I watched him, I saw someone who, like, he was a 3-year starter at Richmond before he made the transfer over to Wake Forest. And that's a 3-time all conference guy there and a Colonial Athletic Association. He was a co-defensive player of the year in 2021 before he transferred to Wake Forest. And I agree. I think the versatility up and down the defensive line, I think that's definitely encouraging. I feel like I'm worried that I'm like repeating myself because this is another guy. He's
Yeah.
not all that big. Like at the Shrine Bowl, he measured at less than 290 pounds, 6'2", 32-inch arms. So below average from an arm length perspective, but quick. Good athlete. I think I agree. He's got better build up speed, but I think he's still got solid acceleration off the ball, especially once he stops firing upright out of his stance. I think that's a little bit of an issue with him sometimes. I think that can improve his first step acceleration, but I see active hands with him, and I think he does a good job of generating pressure in the passing game. I think he's someone that I have like in that round 6, round 7 range. So I think he deserves a shot to get drafted, most certainly.
I think in the group that we're really looking at today, like, right, the first group, we looked at more of the blue chip guys, right? The guys who it's like these guys are going to be NFL players. And in today's group, outside Gervon Dexter, like, you're looking at a bunch of guys who are like very similar. And you got to try to figure out which one is going to be the one or two that succeed, and that's like, Dante Stills, Desjuan Johnson, Moro Ojomo, Taron Vincent, Kobie Turner are all very similar players. But it's like only one or two of them is going to really work out in the NFL, and it's trying to figure out which one that is. But we got a guy who I skipped over on accident last time, which I don't know how I could forget him because he's one of my favorite watches from the Senior Bowl, was Zacch Pickens out of South Carolina. And so Zacch Pickens, he was one of the top recruits in the country coming into college. And like everyone in South Carolina was super stoked about getting him. And I think South Carolina fans will tell you, like, they've been a little disappointed in him because he didn't really produce at the level that I think was expected there. But when I look at the tape, I see a guy who's really talented and doing what he's asked to be doing. Like, he's being asked to two gap and to fill run lanes, and he's not being asked to do what his traits I think would be his best role, which is one gap, explosive up to the quarterback, that three tech role of what the Bears kind of look for, of just plow through that line and create havoc in the backfield. And when he's allowed to do that, I see a guy who is really good. And I don't have his measurements in front of me. I might in a minute, but I thought he showed some really good length on film, really good explosion, and really good torque through his torso, through his core of like being able to maintain power when he's contorted, when he's twisted around, being able to use power when he's twisted like that, which is it's rare. Like I was at the gym doing something to try to work my back the other day because 30-something-year-old man, I have back issues. Who would have thought? But and I was like, it was like torso twists as I was doing it. It was like going up. It was like, man, thinking through it while I'm thinking about like NFL draft stuff and like listening to a draft thing on my phone. I'm like,
Yeah.
I guess that is all core strength, isn't it? When I'm like going up and to the side like this, like it makes sense that core strength is really plays when a lot of your job is getting that lift out of your stance and being, not exactly square where you can just use your legs and you got to use your core. And that's something I think he has in tons, but he is not a huge run stuffer, but I think out of these guys, he's probably more capable of holding up against the run than the other guys that we've talked about besides Dexter. What do you think?
Yeah. So I was thinking about asking you like right before you jumped into Pickens, because I saw that he was still like on our board, that out of the non-Gervon Dexter guys, who you thought was the most likely to have a lengthy NFL career. And I was going to ask that, and then you brought up Zacch Pickens.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Don't even worry about it. And then now I'm like, okay, because Pickens is, as a higher grade for me than anybody not named Dexter that we've talked about today. I mean, I did pull up the measurements. You're looking at a guy just a hair under 6'4", 291. So not the heaviest guy, but also his long arms at 34 and 3/8 inches. That's 85th percentile for interior defensive lineman, which is it's impressive stuff. And I agree. I mean, you could say he's a little bit of an underachiever in college, which that's why that plays into my grade with him a little bit. But I think the natural physical tools are there for him to succeed. I think, explosive off the ball. I like him as a 3-tech, although I saw some reps where they had him as a nose tackle. They had him like, hovering over the center, and he showed, decent enough run stuffing ability. I think he's a, good enough 2-gapper. And you see someone, in a vacuum, he's explosive. In space, he's explosive. And I think that shows up, if he's chasing down guys in space or if he's defending against outside zone. I think he does a good job of, maintaining body control on the move. And I think he's got plenty of raw power too. And it's just a matter of consistently getting the most out of the strength and speed that he has. Because I think his pads are a bit high sometimes. I think there's some times where doesn't always know what he's doing in terms of how to use his hands to shed blocks, but physical tools are definitely impressive. He's someone I'd take probably round 4.
Yeah, I think I have a note here that, where is it? Pass rush moves are lacking, but you can see he's trying to add to his toolbox. And I don't remember why I wrote that down, but I remember thinking like there was a play where it was something from game 1 to game 2 where it's like he tried to do something and he couldn't. It just wasn't quite processing right. And the next game that I watched, he did it like well. So it was like he clearly, that was something he added over the last year to his toolbox, which is something that, I like to see, that a guy's working at his craft, where like taking steps live on the tape that you're watching. So yeah, I mean, Pickens is a guy who I like. I think I've got a 3rd round grade on him.
Yeah.
Which sounds like I'm probably a little higher on all these guys, but this is my first year doing this, so I'm still figuring out how to adjust everything down to where it's not I love every player.
Yeah.
But out of the guys who we talked about, aside from Pickens and Dexter, who I think is most likely, it comes down to Stills or Ojomo for me. I mean,
Yeah.
I think both those guys are the ones who have the most to work with, who are the most ready to get to the NFL.
Yeah.
And I think Ojomo offers I really like some of the upside that I think he offers.
Yeah.
I think a lot of analysts are pretty split on him, whether they think he offers much upside or they think he's just is just short of that.
Yeah.
Where it's just he might max out just shy of being a high upside guy. But at the end of the day, I think I go with Stills, and this is corny as hell. He won Special Teams Player of the Week a few years ago, or last season. When he was a full-time starter, he won Special Teams Player of the Week, and that tells me a lot about how much the guy is going to do just to be on the football field.
Yeah.
And the NFL bloodline there between his dad and his brother, he knows what it takes to be in this league. So Stills is my bet.
No, that's totally fair. Stills was a guy I had in mind. My pick was going to be Ojomo, and I don't have a massive difference between Stills and Ojomo. I totally understand both trains of thought. I'm just thinking because Ojomo, he's got the disruption, nice quick burst. I think low to the ground, really long arms. So. But I don't know. It's an interesting group that we've talked about today, honestly.
Yeah.
A lot of day 3 guys, but definitely players that I could see, developing into having solid careers at the next level.
I do think that that disruptive, chaotic nature that you see in Ojomo is not teachable.
Yeah.
I think that is that ability to throw caution to the wind and just go what looks like certifiably insane is not it's something Kalijah Cansey's the same way, where it's just he's a hurricane,
Yeah.
just ripping through stuff. I do not think that is something that's teachable, that's even trainable. That's just something you have or you don't, and that's something that really stands out to me with Ojomo, that he has that pure chaos to his play that only some guys have.
Yeah. No, I think that sums it up very well. And it's kind of like, all right, he's a bit of a bull in a china shop, but he's got tools. And honestly, this is just me, if I'm going to have a bull in a china shop, all things considered equal, size, speed, strength, all that stuff, I'd rather have one along the interior than off the edge.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. I mean, there's less stuff you're reading, less stuff you're being asked to really care about. I mean, your job is to be an agent of chaos, right?
Yeah.
That's a big part of it. Obviously there are things you need to be cautious of, and you need to protect run lanes, but at the end of the day, if you're getting in the backfield, someone's going to keep paying you.
Yeah, no, 100%. There's one more guy. I know you mentioned you wanted to bring this guy up. Yeah, we didn't have him on our list. But right before we started filming, he's like, "Oh, is it cool if we add this guy?" And I was totally cool with that. Cameron,
I forgot about it.
Yeah, no, I did too for a sec, but I was like, "Oh yeah, I feel like there's something there." But yeah, Cameron Young, defensive tackle out of Mississippi State. So he's someone I keep saying, "Oh, this guy's a 3-tech. This guy's a 3-tech in this group." I think he's a nose tackle. Either just pure over the center, or I like him as a 1-tech as well, because he's got some quickness to his game. Not like a hulking dude. He was listed at 6'3", 315, but measured at a little bit over 6'3" and 304. So a little bit lighter than I was expecting, but still ran.
It matched the play though, because when I thought he was like a nose tackle weight, I was like, why is this guy he was just doing stuff athletically. I was like, if this guy's pushing 320, this is really impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. I think 304 is a better, at least the way he played. I think that works well for him. And there's definitely a want to with him. I think he, active hands at the point of attack. He's shown the ability to string together some moves, both, stacking and shedding against the run and as a pass rusher. And like you said, watching him on tape, he's a lot quicker than he has any right to be. So is he the biggest guy out there? No. Does he have elite pure size, not necessarily, but he has 34.5-inch arms. And I think that most of his issues, in my opinion, are coachable. I think pad level and like bend in the knees, I think that can be coachable. I think that can be fixed, working on his flexibility a little bit, maybe adding a tiny bit more weight into his anchor. But honestly, I think there's a lot to like with him. He's someone where I watched his tape and I came away thinking not a lot of people are talking about him, but I definitely see him getting drafted on day 3 and having like a solid rotational career at the next level.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a guy who he's clearly got some upper body power, which plays with that length pretty well. And I think that's what allows his leverage to him to play kind of tall, is because he's right into the pads and he's locking out. You know, he's strong. He's got those long arms. I'd like to see him use those arms a little more. Like, aside from just on the chest and extending, I'd like to see him start to add some moves with them, because I think he didn't really have much pass rush moves. It was either he's making a play on a stunt or just bull rushing, which I thought he had some pretty good capability on stunts, because his lateral movement ability was more impressive than I expected for a guy his size. And I just love guys with good length. Like, I just think there's so much to work with when you have a guy who can get straight into the pads and has the upper body strength to do something about it. And I've got I think a 4th round grade on him, which is probably, I mean, I think late 4th is probably where you're thinking about, because I think he's going to come in and contribute right away in a rotation.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's definitely fair. I think that he's a little bit of a work in progress as a technician, but powerful guy, quick guy. I do think he contributes in some way right away. And down the line, I could see him, really developing and surpassing where he gets drafted. And that's all we got for these interior defensive linemen. Thank you all for watching. This was part 2. Feel free to check out part 1 as well. We've got a lot of other positional previews. It's a really good defensive tackle, or just defensive line and edge rushers in general. I mean, we've been talking about a lot of guys that we think could really make an impact at the next level.
Yeah, and we'll be coming back to you guys sometime soon with some more offensive linemen. I think we got 9 more? Yeah, 9 more here that we're ready to talk about sometime in the near future. So keep on the lookout for that. Thanks for listening.